The objective of this session is to discuss how best to set up a data sheet to import data into both SPSS and JASP. So I'm starting here in Microsoft Excel. Okay, I could be in Google Sheets or any other of the software packages, but the same rules apply. First rule that we need to adhere to in terms of setting our data sheet up is that each person equals a row. So in total within this data sheet, I have 51 participants, so I'll need 51 rows worth of data. Here is my first participant, and what I know about that person is their reaction time in a congruent situation, their reaction time in an incongruent situation, and which exercise group they were completing. So I know 3 pieces of information about them. Therefore, I will need 3 columns of data about that person. Now, I always choose to add in an ID column alongside those columns of data just to help me track who is who should I need to move my data around at a later point. So, things that we need to know in terms of setting up a sheet for other pieces of software. When those software, SPSS and JASP, import an Excel file or a CSV file, they read the first row of data for their variable headings. And we need to make sure that we set up our variable headings in Excel or CSV with conventions that means that the transport or import is as best as possible. SPSS is slightly more picky than JASP, but let's stick to the rules for SPSS and try and do that across the board. First of all, either use one word or whole words, or if you want to have separate words, put an underscore in between them. That way the software will read the words correctly as they're imported. So I've used underscores here. Other solutions would be to use a capital letter to indicate that you're starting a new word. My personal preference is to use the underscore method. Now, as we look across, I have 2 variables that are repeated measures variables, whereby I have data, numbers within the columns indicating how the participants performed in those situations. My third column is a nominal level data column, indicating which exercise group the participants were in. Now, when I'm setting this column up, again, one word works best, or if you need multiple words, again, use underscores. Now, for this particular experiment I was completing with students, we had an exercise group which did a high intensity exercise, the running anaerobic sprint test, a moderate exercise group who did a warm-up, and then we had a control group who did both reaction time tests but did no exercise. Now, you can import it this way into JASP, that works quite nice and neatly. However, bringing words in, text files, string, into SPSS is a little bit more fiddly. And I'd choose instead of doing that because I know what the software needs in terms of analysis of groups to use numbers. Now, it is easier and quicker to set this up, first of all, in Excel than it is to try and then do it in SPSS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new variable headings column. The convention is to use the number 0 for your first group, and that usually goes to the control group. Now, being in Excel, life becomes simpler because I can just drag down those numbers. Were I to do this in SPSS, I would have to type in the noughts myself in order to set up the grouping variable. Second group, we get the number 1. Click and drag that down. My third group will get the number 2. Click and drag that down. And remember to press save, and that way the software knows to import it with the most latest up-to-date versions. Okay, I'm going to move over to SPSS here. Now, I am currently recording this at home and therefore working via a remote desktop, so if it's a little bit slow from here, apologies. Now, this is the data, this is the screen that I get when I first log in. Some of you, when you're logging into SPSS for the first time, will ask you if you want to use Unicode. The answer to that question is yes, I will use Unicode. Now, options are available to you from this screen. You can either set up a new data set from the very beginning. So if you want to start from scratch and set up a dataset in SPSS, this is what I'd click on and then press OK. Other options are available in terms of importing previous files that you're using already. Notice that I've got files here for the practice attempts I've had at recording this video, or you can click on Open Another File. That's the option I'm going to click on here. And click on Open Another File, click on OK. Now this is the bit where SPSS will take a little bit of time to load because I am working on that remote desktop. Now, whilst we're waiting, make sure that you saved your Excel file or your CSV file and you know clearly where you stored that file. SPSS is taking its sweet time in terms of finding the folder that I'm looking for it to open up, so bear with just for a second. There we go. It's taken me through to my document screen. I'm looking to open an Excel file. Here's my Excel files folder. Okay, now at the moment everything is blank. That's because the options down here are looking for SPSS files. We need to change that. So you click on the menu and you get a list of other files. Okay, now we're looking to use Excel data, so I'm going to click on this option. If we were using a CSV file, that option is just listed down here, which is something you can do if you're using Sheets or you're using JASP and SPSS, but I'm going to click on Excel for the moment. Now a lot of files have just popped up. As you can see, I do work in Excel quite a lot, and the file that I'm using is Data Entry for Analysis Excel. Click on Open, and it will work its way through in terms of trying to import that into SPSS. Now, we need to make sure that this little button is selected, read variable names from the first row. That's why we spent the time doing that in Excel. And if you've got multiple sheets within your Excel file, you can alter that here. As you can see, I set up that file heading for SPSS here, and it's going to read those. So let's click on OK and see what we get. There we go. All of our data imported into SPSS nice and neatly. Now, I'll be honest with you, sometimes it imports the data in a slightly messy format. I'm not really sure why, but I need to tidy that up. Notice over here we have a large number of decimal places to address. To address that, I'm going to go to the variable view, and I'm going to change the number of decimal places. Well, actually, we recorded it to 0 decimal places, so I'm going to change both of those reaction times down to 0. Okay. Now, in terms of analysis, we need to pay attention to this column here. Notice that we've got numeric across the board, but string for exercise group. Now that's this. Now, for simple analysis, it can work. However, for more complex analysis, we need to be using numbers, which is why we created this exercise group numeric column instead. But let's be clear about what we're trying to do with those, because trying to remember what 0, 1, and 2 is can be a little bit tricky. So here I am. There's the data file that's got the numbers in, and what I need to tell the computer is what those numbers mean. To do that, I can go to the values column, select that column and press this blue button. Type in the value 0, add the word control, remember to add, press 1. This was our warm-up group. It's not so important to now use spaces. You can add that in there. 2, and this was our high intensity group who completed the RASP test. Add that in there, click on OK. Now SPSS does give us options in terms of the types of variables it is. Technically these variables are nominal. However, I have found in the past there are occasionally bugs within the software when you label things as nominal level data. Back to the data view, still in number format. Okay, let's just check that I've done all these things correctly. If I press this value labels column up here, you can see that everything moves through to becoming text. Here we go. Now all I would then need to do is save these files to my SPSS files and data output, and I'm good to start working in SPSS. Now, I started off by saying that with these files, you can also work with a CSV file. Now, I've already prepared a CSV file. Pardon me as I come down here. Here it is, CSV file here, and I've already set it up exactly the same way. Now, some of you will struggle to use SPSS whilst at home, which is okay, it's understandable. It's a bulky piece of software. You can see how slow it is running from me. Now, there are other software packages out there, and here's JASP. It's a free piece of software. You can download it off the internet. All you have to do is type in JASP and statistics, and it will take you through to a website that will help you download it. Now, from what I can tell so far, having used it, it's a pretty good piece of software, which gives you the same answers as you would get from SPSS, which is the more established piece of software. Okay, so over I go. Open menu. I'm going to go to computer file, and I'm going to go to browse menu to take me through to what I'm looking at. Okay, here's all sorts of files that I'm currently working on. The CSV file, click on open, and there it comes through, beautifully just the same as it was before. Now, as I said, JASP is slightly better at working with words, but you can set up what these labels mean as you go through. So this was the control group. This was the warm-up group. Again, whole words or words with underscores work best. And now it sees those numbers as words. That then allows us to complete any of the analysis that we're looking to do. Now, what I do know is that some of you do use Microsoft Sheets in terms of creating files because it's a free piece of software. That's good, that works for you. However, SPSS and JASP will struggle to download off the internet in terms of doing it. So you can download from Sheets. Now, I have Microsoft Excel, which is one of the reasons why I can download it. I know that there are other options available to you. The one that I would recommend downloading to is a comma-separated values file in terms of creating files from that. Now that would then go into both JASP and SPSS. Now this is slightly trickier, so I'm going to go and open a CSV file whilst in SPSS. Go up a level, go to my Excel files, and I'm going to choose CSV. There they are down there. Data entry for analysis, CSV, click on open. Now, more things need to be thought about at this stage. If I'm honest with you, I don't do this particularly often because I have a number of SPSS files and I bring files straight in from Excel because I have that as a functionality. So here's the first screen that we get. Step 1 of 6. Does your text match file a predefined format? No. How are your variables arranged? Delimited, that's fine for me. Are variable names included in the top of your file? Yes, they are. The first case that data begins is line number 2. That's correct. Each line represents a case. Yes, that is also correct. How many cases do you want to import? Yes, I want to import all of them. Okay. Which delimiters appear between variables? Tab, comma, space. Yep. Text qualifier, none. Yep, moving along. Okay, it's identified a problem within it. Okay, thank you very much. So you can set it up here. Data format numeric. Okay, works for me. Add that in here. Would you like to paste the syntax? No. Would you like to save this file for future use? No. We'll start off with no at the moment and go to finish. Okay. Now, it's not quite as neat as what I've just done previously. I've got some extra columns in here which I'm not particularly sure about where they've come from and how it's named some of those files. So I'm just going to clear those out of the way so you can right click on them and clear. This is all to do with how things are imported. So this will be my grouping variable. So were things to come through like this, again, I would go back to the variable view and start to tidy things up. So first thing, let's tidy this up as a group. Okay, this is a reaction time test, so I would want to write the word reaction time here. Okay, just in terms of numbering those files. Now I think these second set of numbers are the incongruent, whereas these first set of files are the congruent. Now I'm showing you all of this because there are lots of different ways to do things in SPSS. Now I said previously that I'd need to set up a text file. That is correct. So here I would need to set up the exercise group, but numerically using the value labels, which I've just previously shown you. Having done all of that, typing in 0 for control, 1 for warm-up, 2 for high-intensity RAST. Go back to the data view. Notice that no numbers have come through. I would now have to type in the numbers myself to allocate those numbers. Now you notice that I press this button at the start. This button flicks between the value labels. So I can do this one at a time, moving down the cells as I wish. However, I find that it's a little bit faster if I'm entering data into SPSS to take the labels off and just work with the numbers. Okay, save the file. It's now good to start analyzing. So the objective of this session was to talk through how to set up data files for multiple pieces of software, starting from multiple different places. I hope you find this useful and that you can follow this through for any of the data files or any of the analysis that you have to do in the future. Thank you for your time.